Hey, what's up YouTube, Sky Badger here, and we're back on what I'm pretty sure is day 30, and this is the moment we go to war. So I'm actually recording this audio well after the event has already happened. At the time I was unable to actually record, but at this point here, this is literally just before we attack. So at the moment you can see that Poland has actually caught on to what's happening, and he started to send his aircraft back. Obviously by this point it's too late, and this event here was actually the trigger. So if you see right then, we lose sight of all of his troops. And then if we go to messages, he basically acknowledges what's happening, and if we come back and we see we're now actually at shared, we're no longer on a shared map basis with him. So I start firing the rockets. So at the moment I'm firing rockets at that airbase there so that it stops his aircraft. His aircraft, if we remember, we're heading from Adana into that city there where we're firing the rockets. So we want to destroy that runway or at least stop the aircraft. Over in Europe, me and France had a plan, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to carry out that plan. Now I have a few rockets spare, so I am going to send some at some targets I hadn't planned to. But at this point it's pretty fast paced. We don't have the element of surprise like we intended, because Poland found out literally, like even us France, trust me, he found out literally minutes before we were due to attack, because we did it after day change and he must have got spies. So that's just kind of France just acknowledging what's happening. So me and France have been planning this for a while, and we planned it for right after day change, which I guess was kind of a bad idea, because what we found was he must have had spies deployed or found out somehow, and he somehow figured out that we were going to attack him literally right before we did. So that kind of sucked. So as you can see here, we took the first bit of territory. I was planning on getting those artillery pieces into position, but where they were at the moment is fine. At this point we're just sending all of our troops forwards, and because of the situation down in Egypt with the fact Poland will be fighting multiple players down there, I'm not going to send those troops across like I originally planned. So Poland also has to worry about Egypt. So if we have a look at our rockets, we better fire a few more of those off and get them off while we can. In hindsight, probably shouldn't have bothered firing, we should have fired a few, but what we're going to see is he is going to take a fair amount of casualties. As we continue to fire rockets, we can see that France is now firing his, and we did originally have a plan, and we are following out that plan. So it will be interesting to see how that goes. When I show you the newspaper soon, you'll see that although we don't take out as much as we had have hoped, we definitely inflicted some damage. So down in Turkey, what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just spreading the troops out. I'm going to send 2 infantry to fight Poland's 1, and I should win that battle. I'm also sending their anti-tank out for the sole purpose of just capturing land. I'm going for a bit of a land grab, and because there is some air in the region that I may not be able to destroy, I'm just going to produce some anti-air because I'm going to need it down here. So at this point I want to try to get as much of this land as I can, because obviously as the tide turns, Egypt will probably push forwards a fair bit. So at the moment, as you can see here, I'm attacking with my artillery, making sure not to move too far forwards and actually engage. One thing I don't want to do is take casualties. So if we have a look, this was the plan on where we plan to attack, and I'm just making sure that we're hitting all those locations. I wouldn't want to miss anything. So France is firing his rockets at the moment, and that is a lot. So, like I said before, I'm recording this after the event has passed, and I'm going to be honest with you, due to the fact Poland knew this was coming, he was able to retreat a lot of his forces. This sort of tactic works really well if you have the element of surprise, and we lost that element here. So, if I were to do this again, probably should have done it before day change when Poland found out, because as we're going to see when we go to the newspaper later on, although we do end up killing all the rockets and troops that retreat, it basically is just a waste of rockets. So if we have a look in the newspaper, you can see that obviously I've taken one province at the moment, but we're not going to see many results until the first rockets start to hit. So I'm going to pause for a little bit and I'm going to come back when the first rockets hit. So we're back a little later on and our first rockets are starting to land. And we've got the 2 subs in the region down there, so we're just going to move them somewhere where they might be a little more useful. That's a bit of a choke point, and if we get them out there we can hide them so they won't die. So as you can see, our missiles are landing, and although the aircraft we thought would be there are not, we're still going to destroy 3 rockets, and that could have been a major problem. As when we did attack troops in the area, those could have been launched. At the very least, the plan was that these rockets would damage the airfield, and then stop him from being able to retreat his air force, and I believe we do accomplish that, because these rockets hit, and we don't see the aircraft go any further that way. Although, as soon as we went to war, I guess they could have no longer taken that path anyway. But I had still hoped to have got the aircraft there when they were refueling, but we didn't. Although you can't see it then and there, we did actually destroy those 3 rockets. It's just how it works. It takes the newspaper a little while to load. So if we have a look at the rockets at the moment, a lot of them are starting to near the targets. France and I have both deployed our air force, and all of our troops are marching forwards. We're not holding much back. I'm holding a few troops back for the sake of defense, but really, to be honest, it's not all that much. So here we are in the newspaper. You can see that those first few rockets hit, and we can see that in the place it did hit, he lost a tactical bomber and 3 rockets. So that was a pretty good hit. So back a little later on, and I've turned off morale map. And I've done this because for some reason the game wasn't running as smoothly as always, and it could have just been due to I have no idea what, but for some reason turning off the morale map seemed to work. I don't know if that was the problem, but it seemed to help. So most of our rockets are starting to finally near their targets, and we can see what is happening along all fronts. We're pushing in, our air force are pushing up, and our rockets are nearly there. So as we can see here in Banana, those rockets are hitting, and they're hitting hard. It looks like Poland was trying to get some troops out of there, but I don't know how successful he was. He's tried to retreat 14 rockets, and I think he has successfully got some of them out, but our aircraft will just hunt them down later on. They are still a pretty easy target in convoys. As we can see also, France's rockets are hitting that group there pretty hard and removing the force in the region. So we're back in the newspaper, and if we have a look we can see that Poland has taken a lot of damage. Against France he's taken 4,000 casualties, and against myself at this point he was around 2,000 or 3,000. So while he did retreat a lot of his troops, we're starting to pick those off now with our air force. Most of the rockets have landed and they have hit, but Poland has launched a few back, and he took out our airbase in Stettin, which means our tactical bombers and interceptors have lost some of their range. Luckily though, there was no troops there, so we took no casualties. We just lost an airbase. So our main goal at this point is to really just take out the rockets. This was just after the update, which gave rockets a upkeep of 100 oil. So for me in France, offloading these rockets was actually pretty timely. Like literally, when we turned on our games, a day change, the update implemented, and we had pretty horrible oil economies. So with that now fixed, with the fact we fired all of our rockets, we're back in a good position. Although I have to admit, it did come at a bad time. So thank you for watching, see you next time.